Hey everybody, Tracy Brown, founder and moderator of the Facebook group, What Is Mine to Do? What is mine to do to interrupt or end race-based hatred and violence? And in the effort to help myself and everybody else answer that question, we do 5 things. We educate people about racism and how it shows up and how it was constructed and how it shows up today in our interactions individually and collectively. We equip people to respond in situations and to build competence and confidence. We engage each other in conversations and in exchanges so that we can all grow. We experience together what it's like to interrupt and end race-based hatred and violence. And our goal is for all of us to evolve and be better examples. So educate, equip, engage, experience, and evolve is what we are all about. And right now, this is number 4 in a series of 5 concepts to think about, and 5 days, 5 concepts, and 5 prompts of ideas or experiences you've had that you can post into the group. So what is the topic for today? The concept for today is compassion. Compassion. Oh my goodness. So often, when we talk about compassion, people think of pity, or they think of empathy or sympathy. And I guess all of those have some element of compassion, demonstrating compassion for people where they are and what they are experiencing. And so there are lots of ways that we can talk about compassion as we explore how to interrupt race-based hatred and violence. But there are 2 quotes, 2 of my favorite wise women ancestors I love to quote. And the first one is from Zora Neale Hurston. And she wrote, "When you find a man who has lost his way, you don't make fun of him and scorn him and leave him there. You show him the way. If you don't do that, you really just prove that you're kind of lost yourself." Repeating, when you find a man who has lost his way, you don't make fun of him and scorn him and leave him alone or leave him there. You show him the way. If you don't do that, you prove that you're sort of lost yourself. Often when we talk about compassion in conversations about race-based hatred and violence, we jump to political positions, or we jump into our opinions, or we go into judgment about what that person could have done, should have done, or should not have done or said. And for us to be change agents in this area, sometimes we have to remember that we didn't always know everything that we know today. And someone can be very frustrated or lost or angry, but they're in a very different place. And it's easy to jump to a conclusion or jump to a judgment. And I think this is one of the reasons why so many people are afraid to talk about race-based hatred and violence. They're afraid they're going to get jumped on. They're afraid they're going to be attacked for saying or doing something that they really just didn't know better. And so when we have compassion, we are able to have the conversation from a very different place. Now, of course, there are times when someone is intentionally mean or rude, or they have attacked first. And so I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the 75 to 90% of the time when people just make honest mistakes or they don't know any better because they haven't read the books you've read. They haven't been in the conversations you've been in. They weren't raised by the people you were raised. Whatever has made the difference for you. So by showing compassion, we actually are able to have the conversation. It doesn't mean you let people off the hook at all. It means you have the conversation from a place that is that's building a bridge instead of burning a bridge. So I think Zora is right. Sometimes when we just go and talk about how bad someone is, or we use name calling, etc., we just prove that we're kind of lost too, because either we don't know what to do, or we don't know how to change the situation, or we just don't care to. It's sometimes easier and feels better to simply complain. So compassion leads us into being a guide, a friend, a role model, an educator, because we have compassion for that person not knowing better, or being able to share information. So that's one of the two quotes that I want to share as we focus on compassion. The other quote is from Maya. So the first quote is from Zora. The second quote is from Maya Angelou. And she wrote, "While I know myself as a creation of God, I am also obligated to realize or remember that everyone else and everything else are also God's creation." Now, I don't use this quote a lot because I know that everyone doesn't necessarily believe in God, or that God is perceived in different ways by different people. But what I love about this quote is that it reminds us to be compassionate because everyone has value, and everyone, where there's a relationship between all of humanity and really all of creation, but all of humanity. And so, wow, do I want to treat someone as if they are not equal human? Like we say, we want to end race-based hatred and violence, but we can be very violent in our language. We can be very violent in our approach. We can be very violent in words and actions, because violence is not just, pulling out a gun or a knife or a weapon and physically hurting someone. And so when we remember that truly we are all connected, and what we want is equality and equity, then how can we expect that when we don't model it? And again, if you're relatively new into this conversation, I'm not talking about being a doormat, and I'm not talking about just everything and anything anybody does or says is okay. What I'm saying is, as you approach the issue, as you discuss the topic, as you engage in changing a policy, a practice, a law, a rule, that when you remember to be compassionate for wherever the other person is, you will make a difference. So compassion is one of the tools that you want in your toolkit, and it is number 4 of the 5 concepts that we're bringing up this week to integrate into our approach for interrupting or ending race-based hatred and violence. So what's the prompt? What I want you to post about, think about, and then post about is this: what is an example of being compassionate without avoiding the topic of race-based hatred and violence? What's an example of being compassionate without avoiding the topic of race-based hatred and violence. And when you think of your example, you can post it below this video in the comments, or you can look on the What Is Mine to Do Facebook page for a related post that'll have a graphic with the prompt, what is an example of being compassionate without avoiding the topic of race-based hatred and violence. And if you want to look for that graphic and the word compassion, then you can post your example there as well. My name is Tracy Brown. I'm the host and moderator and founder of the What Is Mine to Do Facebook group. I'm so glad that you are participating with us. We can make a positive difference in the world. We can interrupt race-based hatred and violence, and we can do it together. Bye for now.